All right, we got Ryan D on the line asking about the playoff situation with a smaller schedule. If I could jump in on this one real quick, I just think that the College Football Playoff Committee has a difficult I am often critical, but I have state right off the top each and every year they have a very difficult, basically impossible assignment in going with 5 conferences and then other worthy teams into 4 spots. Now they're going to have less data to go on depending on what non-conference games could be eliminated. We don't have enough cross-play between the 5 conferences anyway to make as valid determination or evaluation of these teams, and we're going to have less. So they're just going to have less data to work on to make a reasonable decision.
Yeah, we don't know what the season's going to look like as of right now. We're assuming it's still going to be 12 games for everybody, but it's possible it could be 9, it could be 10, it could be conference only, it could be conference plus 1 non-conference. If you had a marquee game and then your Bowling Green and your Buffalo just get sloughed off to the side somehow, some way, if they start late, I don't know. But it's going to be a jigsaw puzzle. Could be a case where you book matchups on the fly just because you both have an open weekend. You just don't know. We just do not know until we get into it. But my feeling is, as of today, it's going to be played as scheduled, 12 games. And so I don't look at it as that big of an issue. And as you said, Mark, however it turns out, if one team plays 11 games and one team somehow only plays 9, that's just the way that it worked out this year. And I think people are just going to have to accept that this is an uncommon situation. This is not how anybody would design it. And we're all prisoners of inertia at this point, that however it works out, however it works out. And whether a team played 9 games or if they played 11, just give me the best 4 at the end of the year. I don't care how you do it. If the number 1 team only played 9 games and won them all by 20 points, they're the best team. I mean, I don't know what the big argument would be. And I think everybody's going to have to put those format questions aside. And this will be more of an eyeball test type year as opposed to an apples to oranges comparison type year, I think, because there's going to be inequity. I was working on a project yesterday, and I was looking back at 1997, and Michigan won the AP National Championship that year. They played 7 ranked teams in the course of the year. 4 of them were in the top 10, including Ohio State, who they played at the end of the year, and then Washington State in the Rose Bowl, and they were given the AP championship. This was the last year before they went to the BCS the following year. Well, Nebraska, everybody thought, Nebraska, should have been the top team. Well, they only played 4 ranked teams, and only 2 of them were in the top 10. And so, as you look at it on a comparison, anybody who Michigan may not have been a dominant on the field, but they certainly played and beat better competition than Nebraska did. Just raise that as an example of that was cut and dried, 7 ranked teams to 4. And the coaches still gave their championship to their buddy, Tom Osborne, and, Michigan got the AP championship. And we did have one split championship in the BCS era. I think USC won half one year and LSU won the other half. And so it's all apples to oranges. And I guess that's just what I'm trying to come around to, is that it's not going to be a perfect scenario this year. And I think everyone can put out of their mind that it's going to be cut and dried, that 1, 2, 3, 4 are going to suddenly appear to us that, that's obvious. No, there's going to have to be some gray area and some discussion. And, the committee's going to do what they can do. That's all, all they can ever do.
That 97 Nebraska team also had a perfectly placed cleat in the end zone against Missouri. They kicked a football up in the air that caught the other Nebraska player right in the hands. He held on to it, and they had a miraculous win against a pretty marginal Missouri team. Steve, you're stealing my thunder. I'm marching through controversial national championship decisions right now. I'm ready to roll out 1983, 84, and 90.
There you go.
You other two have any thoughts about what the playoff schedule could look like?
Well, one thing I think that we know is going to be the case is that we're not going to see a season that slid back. Notre Dame has come out and moved up its academic term a couple of weeks, wants to go to winter break at Thanksgiving. So I know a lot of time people were talking about, well, maybe they slide it back a couple of weeks. We don't start the season until October. I don't see that being likely just based on the actions of some of these schools. I've been kind of perusing Twitter as we've been doing the show, and it seems like some of the Western schools, Cal, UCLA, might have open campuses, which bodes well for maybe where the Pac-12 is going to be in terms of what the Power 5 situation is going to look like. I agree with Steve that we're going to have to accept a certain level of chaos in this formula, but I don't think personally, I don't think we're going to see a case where there's going to be a huge disparity in terms of how many games these teams play. I mean, obviously, if we get to a point of where a lot of games are impacted, we've got larger issues to worry about at that point. But I don't think we're going to see a huge variance in that purpose. But I do think that it's going to probably be one of the tougher calls that the college football playoff committee is going to have to go through, because what happens if there are a couple schools that just are not able to go, and because of that it creates ripples down the schedule and you're not able to make these moves to fill in these types of games. So I think they're still going to try and keep it as business as usual as possible. But with that being said, you have to be prepared for the unexpected, because even under the best case scenario, we've seen a lot of stuff go down through the years, and now we're dealing with outside forces that we've never had to deal with before.
And right now, things seem to be progressing well to where the season would begin on time. But if you're thinking, like, if it doesn't, and there are only 9 games played, I think that negatively impacts the Big Ten more than, say, the SEC, where the SEC has non-conference games on the back end of their schedule quite a bit. And Ohio State would lose the Oregon game. And, I'm looking at Clemson's schedule. They have Notre Dame and South Carolina in the second half of their schedule, or past, where the games would be skipped. So, like, if it would come down to Ohio State and Clemson and both are equal, and for some reason there's 3 other teams ahead of those two, and you look at their schedules, Clemson having Notre Dame and maybe South Carolina, assuming they'd be good, they've got some non-conference wins that Ohio State wouldn't. And it's not like a conference win does anything for Clemson, because we know the ACC is terrible. But it would bring some interesting situations if the season is the non-conference portion, the first 3 games or whatever, didn't happen. And that would, because that's where a lot of the premier games are, and at least for, when the Big Ten likes to do stuff. And but I think right now, we're all feeling a lot better than we have in the past. But we'll see what Gene Smith has to say. We'll see what the Division I Council has to say this, coming up. And it's an interesting discussion, but we still need to know more, obviously.
Folks, let's understand out of the gate that this is not the NFL playoffs in regards to an objective system that you go step 1, step 2, step 3 to determine a playoff. And then all of a sudden, if you had some team playing 16 games and another team 11 games, and we're talking about a process that's subjective anyway. So it's just going to be subjective again, just with different criteria based on a little bit more unevenness, possibly, to the schedule.
Just make it 8 teams, and then everybody's a little bit happier.
I would be if it was done the right way.